Fake Boyfriend. Young Love, Book 1. Written by Suzana Thompson. Narrated by Paulina Schubert. Chapter 2. Remembering that awful day, I exhaled in relief as I drove away from the apartment where Gage lived. While it hadn't played out the way I had imagined, he still had agreed to help me. I'd expected him to jump at the chance to earn the money he needed. Instead, he had reacted with resentment to my offer. Of course, he probably hated having to resort to this to get the money. But it wasn't like I was asking him to do anything that difficult. I was the one who had to humiliate myself by approaching him with this pathetic request. It would be worth it, though, if it would help me get Courtney and Damon off my back. When I returned and had to go knock on his door, though, I felt almost as nervous about approaching Gage as I had earlier. His expression was also just as unwelcoming as it had been then, when he answered the door to me. "I've got the money," I told him timidly. "Come in," he said, making it sound more like an order than an invitation. I hesitated warily, as I wondered how dangerous he might be. "I'm not going to count the money out where everyone can see me and decide to rob me," he snapped. There was no one else around in the hallway, but I was too intimidated to point that out. He moved back impatiently, and I stepped into his apartment with great trepidation. When he brushed past me to close the door, I was surprised by how good he smelled. It wasn't the scent of an expensive cologne like Damon's, but a clean smell like soap with a whiff of underlying masculine scent that I couldn't name. I had the crazy urge to get closer and inhale more of it, but I didn't act on it. Gage led me into the living room, but didn't ask me to sit down as I awaited uncertainly for his next directive. I wanted to say something polite about his place, but the words never made it out of my mouth. Grasping for something to break the tension, I abruptly pulled the envelope from the bank out of my purse and thrust it at him. He counted the money and gave me an appraising look. "When do I get the rest?" "After the job is done," I reminded him. "Which is when?" he asked. "How long do I need to do this?" "Until Courtney starts dating Damon," I replied. "You expect me to pretend to be your boyfriend indefinitely?" he demanded in annoyance. "They're already kind of involved," I explained, blushing at the memory of what I had seen them doing. "I don't know why he hasn't officially asked her to be his girlfriend." Gage's speculative gaze made me nervously avert mine. "You've seen them having sex," he stated. My blush deepened with the heat flaming over my cheeks. "I didn't mean to. I didn't even know they were there until I walked in on them. I tried to avoid them as much as I could, but I skipped dinner, and I wanted to grab breakfast real quick. I didn't hear them anywhere, and she's usually so loud." My ears were burning as I trailed off in mortification under the scrutiny that I could still feel. "Please don't tell anyone," I pleaded. "People think that Courtney that she doesn't do that." "It's nice of you to look out for her, especially since she's accusing you of trying to steal her boyfriend." "Don't call him that in front of other people," I said, looking up at him in alarm. "She doesn't want to scare him off." He rolled his eyes. "She's an idiot. She's letting him call the shots. No wonder he won't commit to her. He knows he doesn't have to, and that she'll still give him anything he wants." He paced away from me and shook his head. "This isn't going to work. He'll never ask her to be his girlfriend the way she's going, so your scheme isn't going to help." "Even if it doesn't, it'll at least get them to leave me alone," I replied. "What are they doing to you?" he asked in a tone that conveyed he thought I was complaining about nothing. "Courtney has been spreading all kinds of terrible rumors about me, and Damon—" I trailed off with a shudder. "Has he forced himself on you?" Gage asked, his voice suddenly sharp and angry. "No," I shook my head for emphasis. "He just says things. But he's just so creepy sometimes. I don't think he would actually do anything, though." His quick, agitated steps ate up the distance between us. "Who is this asshole? What's his last name?" "I don't know," I admitted. "I didn't even know his first name until Courtney said it. He's popular, though, and she is, too. There were a lot of people at her party." My mouth compressed with that bad memory. He picked up on my mood. "Did something happen to you at this party?" I waved his question off. "Just some people spilled some drinks on me." "More than one? Was it deliberate?" I glanced at him in surprise. He had a better vocabulary than I had expected from his image as a tough guy. Damon did it accidentally, but the others... My glaze slid away from his as I remembered my humiliation. I crossed my arms over my chest as the memory brought back my self-consciousness. Those guys hadn't forgotten the sight of me in that wet t-shirt, and they continued to mention my breasts despite how I hid them beneath baggy shirts. I couldn't wait for winter so that I could cover up under more layers of clothing. They spilled drinks on your shirt, Gage deduced. Typical immature assholes. I gave him a scrutinizing look. You're not what I expected. He crossed his own arms over his chest and fixed an unnerving stare on me. What'd you expect? My hands fiddled nervously with my short sleeves as my gaze slid past him. You just seemed so tough and cold, but you've actually treated me better than they did. So you expected me to treat you worse? He snapped, startling me into looking directly at him. Why the hell would you come to me then? Are you looking for trouble? No, I exclaimed. I didn't expect you to do anything to me. I just thought you wouldn't care about why I was hiring you as long as you got your money. He scowled at me. So you think I'm some kind of mercenary who doesn't give a shit about anybody? But that's what you said, I blurted. I mean, not the mercenary part, but when your friend tried to tell you about me, you said that you didn't give a shit. His eyes narrowed at me like he didn't believe me. When did I say that? Who was talking to me about you? Your friend. But I was glad you didn't want to hear anything about the new girl, because it was all lies Courtney told people about me. I liked that you weren't interested in gossip. That was one of the things that was different about you. The mistrust left his eyes, but he was still studying me and taking my measure. What else was different about me? You weren't conceited like a lot of other guys, I faltered, feeling another blush creeping over my cheeks. A small smile played over his lips as he watched me. Conceited about what? Maybe you are conceited, I muttered, even as my telltale blush heated my entire face. I recalled my reaction to him the first time I'd seen him. I'd been avoiding making eye contact with anyone after my awful interaction with Kyle and my subsequent upsetting talk with Damon. Guys were openly staring at me and making comments to their friends as I walked by. I heard male laughter in my wake. I decided that I hated guys and wanted nothing to do with them. Then I saw the tall, tough guy with the cold but alluring eyes, and my steps slowed to a halt as I stared at him. Other girls were looking at him too, but none of them dared to approach him. What fascinated me the most about him was that he didn't appear to be aware of the attention. I'd never seen such a good-looking guy so completely ignore his effect on those around him. Even if they were subtle about it, gorgeous guys had a bit of smugness about their looks. It was in the way they held themselves, and the way they glanced around at their admirers. This guy took no notice of anyone who was checking him out. It was his friend who saw me staring. Hey, there's the new girl. And she's looking at you like she wants a piece of you. I heard that she likes to... I don't give a shit. The tough guy cut in, his tone annoyed and impatient. I had my head down and had begun to walk away, but I stopped in my tracks and couldn't help glancing toward him to see his expression. He looked just as annoyed as he sounded, and his eyes never even flickered toward me when his friend immediately alerted him to the fact that I was looking at him again. Hey, new girl, the friend yelled. I'm here too. Forget him. Look at me. I ducked my head in embarrassment, but I couldn't help cracking a smile at his antics. I made her smile, I heard him crowing as I resumed walking. When's the last time a girl smiled at your grouchy ass? Fuck you, the guy retorted. In your dreams, which is the only way you're getting any. It was at this point that my straining ears could no longer hear their conversation, because I couldn't take the chance of stopping to listen and being caught by his friend again. Twice was bad enough. I got a chance to eavesdrop on them more unobtrusively later that day, though. I couldn't stomach the thought of trying to find a place to sit in the cafeteria, so I snuck outside. We weren't supposed to leave the building without permission, but it was worth the possibility of getting in trouble to escape the unrelenting stares. I felt bad now for ever thinking that gossip was fun. It was only fun if it wasn't about you, and I vowed to never spread it about anyone ever again. It was so easy to assume that it was true, But I had found out the hard way that anyone could make up false stories about people. The sound of voices drifted toward me and distracted me from my solitary contemplation. Curious about who else was out here, I stood up from the bench I was sitting on and cautiously moved toward the source of the sound. I began to distinguish words as I moved closer. "How much do you need?" $1,200, a gruff voice answered. My heart skipped a beat in recognition, and I peered around the corner of the building to see if I was correct about who was speaking. I felt fluttering in my stomach when I saw him. It was the tough guy, with the aloof attitude, and he was just as tense as he had been earlier. His body language and his size made him look extremely intimidating. His friend let out a drawn-out whistle. "Where are you going to get that kind of money?" "I'm not," he stated flatly. I dove out of sight when he suddenly turned in agitation and paced toward me. With my heart pounding in fear that he had seen me spying on him, I sprinted back to the bench and plopped down on it. Trying to even get my breath and act casual, I fought the urge to dart a glance in his direction and see if he had rounded the corner. When nothing happened for a long, scary moment, I looked and saw that he wasn't there. Exhaling in relief, I realized I no longer heard their voices. Either they had stopped talking or they had walked away from that spot and gone in the other direction. I didn't dare go check to see if they were still there, so I remained where I was. Now that I was able to calm down, I wondered what he needed that money for. Why didn't he just get a job? I was considering that myself. Not because I needed the money, but because I had nothing else to do with my time. It was apparent that Courtney had destroyed my chances of having a social life here. Only guys had approached me, and they had just wanted sexual favors. Judging by the looks they had given me, it didn't seem like any of the girls wanted to be friends with me. I hadn't had a chance to confront Courtney yet, and I happened to catch her alone in the hallway that afternoon. As I approached her, I caught sight of the tough guy walking past us. "Who is that guy?" I asked her, the words slipping from my mouth unplanned. She followed my gaze and glanced at me in disbelief. "Him? That's Gage Monroe, and he's dangerous." She smirked at me. "Not that I care if he murders you, but you have no chance of getting him. He doesn't date." "Why do you say he's dangerous?" I questioned. "Because he's been in juvie, and I heard he was in a gang before he moved here." As I was reeling from that revelation, she spoke again. "You've got the right idea, though. Get a boyfriend and stop chasing after Damon." "I'm not chasing after him. I've tried to get him to leave me alone." Her lips compressed as she fixed a hard expression on me. "Try harder. Find another guy or I'll make your life hell." "Like you haven't already," I retorted bitterly. "And how am I supposed to find a boyfriend after you ruined my reputation?" She responded with a cruel smile. "You've got the attention of every guy at this school. That should help you find a boyfriend." "Gee, thanks," I said sarcastically. "Every girl wants to be propositioned by a bunch of random guys. That's the stuff of fairy tales." "See, that's your problem. You're aiming too high. A loser like you shouldn't expect to get a prince. If you keep thinking that you're better than you are, I'll have to really put you in your place." She walked off after that threat, leaving me desperate to escape her wrath. After suffering through just one day of her mean girl tactics, I was already dreading the next day. I knew that I couldn't survive an entire year of being her target. The only way to stop her would be to get a boyfriend. She had made that very clear. Yet I didn't know how to get one. I'd never had one before, and none of the guys who had approached me had asked me out. They had only wanted sexual favors, which was something I wouldn't give them to get Courtney to leave me alone. My problem was how to get a boyfriend without enticing him with sex. Thanks to Courtney, everyone expected that from me. That seemed to be all that was on their minds. Every guy wanted. My eyes caught sight of the tough guy. Gage, I recalled Courtney telling me his name. His friend had insisted to him that I wanted him, but he hadn't even bothered to glance at me. The only thing he seemed concerned with was money. My heart began to thump with excitement as a crazy plan formed in my mind. $1,200 was a lot of money, but I could more easily give a guy money than perform the sexual act I had seen Courtney engaging in with Damon. I was pretty sure that I was scarred for life. The thought of approaching Gage was intimidating, but that was why he was the perfect solution for both my problems. Courtney would be satisfied that I had a boyfriend, and Damon wouldn't be able to bully him like he would some nice guy that I might convince to help me. Also, offering to pay Gage would eliminate the expectation of sex. It would be a business arrangement, like hiring someone to do a job. All I had to do was offer him the deal. I took a seat next to him at the back of the class I discovered that I had with him, but I realized that I couldn't speak to him about this at school where someone might overhear us. I would have to wait until after school. Fortunately, this was the final class of the day, so I could just follow him outside. I tried to pay attention to the teacher, but my gaze kept being drawn back to Gage. If he felt my eyes on him, he gave no indication of it. The guy had the brooding loner persona that I had previously only read about in books and seen in movies. I had never encountered someone like him in real life. No wonder so many girls kept stealing glances at him. I spent the entire class working up the nerve to talk to him, but I failed to say a word as I trailed after him and watched him get on the school bus. Cursing myself for not thinking to offer him a ride, I hurried to my car so that I could follow his bus out of the parking lot. Now, as I stood inside his apartment, it occurred to me that he didn't have transportation to take me out on our fake dates. "Oh no!" I exclaimed. "What?" he questioned. "You don't have a car." He scowled at me. "You're all the same, aren't you? Well, if you were looking for a rich guy, you shouldn't have come to me. Why else do you think I would need money?" "That's not it. I just don't know how Courtney is going to believe that you're my boyfriend if she doesn't see you picking me up for dates." His expression became less severe, but it still held disapproval. "Why do you care what she thinks? Are you really that desperate to get her to like you?" I laughed bitterly. "She'll never like me. I'm just trying to get her to stop ruining my life." He clearly thought that I was being melodramatic. "How is she ruining your life?" Resentment hardened my voice. "She's telling lies about me. Most of the damage is already done, but it'll die down if she stops spreading rumors." His head cocked to the side like he was considering me anew. "What kind of lies?" I dropped my gaze from his uncomfortably, unable to even imagine speaking of it with him. "Ah," he responded like I had answered his question. "Those kind of lies." "She said it'll get worse if I don't get a boyfriend," I added miserably, noticing the shabby carpet I was standing on. It seemed to emphasize the downturn my life had taken. I don't know how it could get worse, but I don't want to find out. "I have a car." My eyes lifted to his face in surprise at that statement. "You do?" "That's why I need the money," he explained, "to fix it." "Oh," I responded dully, disappointment bringing me back down. "I could get it fixed right away if you pay me now," he said. "The whole thing?" I asked in dismay, although I knew that that was what he meant. He shrugged. "That's how much money I need to get my car fixed. Then I could pick you up for dates." "But if you get all the money now—" His gaze hardened at my unspoken accusation. "I don't break my promises." It seemed like he was insinuating that I would break mine, and it was really insulting. "I've already proven that I'll give you the money," I retorted. "I've already given you half when you haven't even done anything yet." "You want me to prove it?" he snapped at me. "Fine, let's go." I reacted with a startled little jump as he suddenly came toward me, but he moved past me and yanked open the door. "After you." The hard edge of his tone took away any semblance of gentlemanly courtesy the words might have held. I should have felt relieved to leave and not be alone with him in his apartment anymore, but I was too nervous about what he intended to do now. "Where are we going?" I asked. "Your place," he replied as he started walking down the hallway. "You'll have to give me a ride to work after." "You have a job?" I questioned in surprise. "Then why do you need money from me?" He glanced at me with a scowl. "Because I don't make enough to pay for everything." I wondered what else a high school guy had to pay for besides his car, but I was too intimidated to ask. I also had to hurry to keep up with his long-legged stride. He was forced to slow down and follow me once we got outside, but he soon spotted my car and overtook me again. I deliberately waited until I was right beside my car before pressing the button to unlock the door for him. He leaned in and moved the seat back before sitting down in it. When I sat down beside him and began driving, the situation became surreal. I was bringing a guy home with me. He was right here in the car with me, and he was coming over. It didn't matter that he wasn't really interested in me. His physical presence was overwhelming in the confines of the front seat, and my brain was only aware of the fact that he was a boy. Here. With me. We should stop at the bank first, he said, the mundane suggestion breaking through my surreal trance. Comprehension filtered into my mind, but my response was unsure. I didn't decide. My bank, he clarified, interrupting my hesitant reply. I need to put this money in my account. I glanced quickly at him. You brought it with you? I wasn't going to leave it laying around to get stolen, he retorted. Turn right at the light. I put my turn signal on as I approached the intersection and followed his directions. It's up there, on the left, he told me, gesturing toward the windshield. I signaled to get into the left lane and spotted the bank up ahead. After turning into the parking lot and finding a spot, I was told to wait there as Gage opened the door and exited the car. Watching him stride toward the entrance and enter the bank, I exhaled, but was unable to expel the tension from my chest. My short-lived relief over Gage's acceptance of my offer had ended when I found out about the problem with his vehicle. My plan had been very simple, but now to become complicated. It was only supposed to involve Courtney seeing Gage picking me up from home for our supposed dates. Once out of sight of her, he could drop me off somewhere for an allotted amount of time and bring me home afterwards. I hadn't expected to have him actually come inside the house, nor to have to do anything except leave with him. Now I would have to deal with much closer scrutiny of my fake relationship with Gage. I fretted over how to act and what to say. I had no experience with bringing boys home, and I wasn't sure what to do. My stomach was tied up in knots by the time Gage returned to the car. How are we going to do this? I asked anxiously. Do what? He inquired as he buckled his seatbelt. This, I said, showing up at the house with you, pretending that you're my boyfriend. He shot a look at me. Isn't this your plan? Haven't you schemed and set up every scenario? That would have been the smart thing to do, and I should have known that everything might not go according to plan. No, I told him in a near panic. We can't do this today. I'm not ready. I thought I'd have until the weekend to prepare, and that I'd just meet you at the door and leave with you. I don't know how to... Calm down, he interrupted. You're stressing over nothing. It'll be enough for her to see us together. We'll stay a little while, and then you can drop me off at work. He made it sound easy, but I couldn't seem to force myself to get out of the car after parking it in the driveway. I remembered Courtney telling me that Gage would never be interested in me, and I wondered what insanity had possessed me to think that I could pull this off. There was no way that she would believe he was my boyfriend. This is where you live? Gage demanded in a harsh tone. I looked at him and saw him staring at the house with a hard expression. Of course you do, he continued, making it sound like an insult. No wonder you can throw around that kind of money. I've been saving that money since I was little, I told him. It's all the money people gave me for Christmas and my birthdays, and what I've earned from my babysitting jobs. Nobody has given me any money since I moved here. I glanced toward the house. It was an upper-middle-class home, but it wasn't a mansion. It's not like we suddenly became rich. His sound of disgust had my gaze colliding with his. You're not hurting, Sarah. You don't know how good you've got it. His words were bitter and derisive, but his gaze was so intense that I forgot what we were talking about. All my mind really retained was that he had said my name, and that it had some kind of physical effect on me to hear him speak it. My ears were anticipating the sound of his voice and what he might say next. The odd moment passed when he broke eye contact and flung open the passenger door. Let's get to it. I don't want to be late for work. Getting out of the car, I followed him to the front door and automatically unlocked it with my key like it was my home. Once I stepped inside, the feeling of comfortable homecoming ceased. This was Courtney's house, and I didn't feel welcome or safe here. I glanced around warily, even though I hadn't seen Damon's car parked in the driveway. Where have you been? Courtney's voice demanded as she came storming into view. We've been waiting for... She halted and gaped at Gage with her mouth still open from her abruptly aborted rant. It would have been comical, but seeing Kyle appear beside her made me stiffen with the memory of his vile behavior toward me at school this morning. He smirked as his gaze shifted between Gage and me. Sorry, man, I was here first. You'll have to wait your turn. Gage ignored him and spoke to Courtney. Hi, you must be Sarah's sister. I'm Gage. I'm Courtney, she responded, seeming to come back to herself. I don't mean to be rude, but Sarah already made plans with Kyle, so... No, I didn't, I denied vehemently. Courtney told me you wanted to meet me here after school, Kyle said. Looks like you got distracted from there to here, but you're not going to leave me waiting while you suck his dick. I'm first. He took a step toward me, and I stepped back. Gage stepped in front of me and faced off against Kyle. Whatever you thought you were going to get from Sarah, you better forget it. If you come near my girlfriend again, you and I are going to have a problem. You got that? Girlfriend? Courtney gasped. Whatever, ma'am, Kyle replied, affecting an indifferent attitude. I could tell that he was intimidated by Gage, though, by the way he gave him a wide berth as he skirted around him to get to the door. He was in such a hurry that he didn't even take the time to close it behind him. Gage had turned to watch him go, and the expression on his face was so scary that I understood why Courtney had said that he was dangerous. When he turned back to face her, she took a step back away from him. Well, she said nervously, I'll leave you alone, too. Backing out of the entryway, she then made a quick dash out of sight. Gage remained where he was, standing rigidly, with angry tension emanating from him. I stood hesitantly beside him, not sure of what to do now. I was too intimidated to break the silence and possibly provoke him into turning his anger on me. I startled when he suddenly spun around and stalked past me. Come on, he demanded in a harsh tone. Let's get out of this fucking place. Following him outside, I shut the door behind me. He threw an agitated look at me as I approached the car. I'm driving. I need to... Meekly handing him the keys without protest, I went around to the passenger side as he adjusted the driver's seat to his height and got in behind the wheel. Buckling my seatbelt, I started to worry about what kind of driver he was. Maybe he had damaged his car by crashing it, and maybe he would destroy my car now. I didn't dare voice any of my concerns, though, as he pulled out onto the street. I braced myself, but he didn't hit the gas pedal like I was expecting him to. He accelerated smoothly and turned out to be a good driver. Unlike me, he even made smooth, easy stops at stop signs instead of jerking to a halt. I actually relaxed and began to enjoy the ride. Gage had opened the windows, and the air seemed to blow away the tension and let in the sunny atmosphere of the afternoon. I could be any girl out enjoying the beautiful day with her boyfriend. The illusion ended when he brought up the real reason he was with me. Bring me the rest of the money tomorrow, and I'll be able to get my car fixed and pick you up for dates. What's wrong with your car? I asked to avoid responding to his request. The brakes are completely shot, and I have a transmission leak. Oh, I said, feeling bad about assuming that he had wrecked his car. He sighed. I shouldn't have kept it in the first place. I knew I'd have enough to pay insurance on it and spend money on gas and upkeep. It was just so amazing to have a car that I let myself get talked out of selling it. Why'd you buy it if you wanted to sell it? I questioned in confusion. I didn't, he answered. My grandpa left it to me. Hearing him refer to his grandfather as Grandpa was incongruous with his tough guy exterior, and it made him seem a little less intimidating. In fact, this entire conversation about his car and all his practical concerns about it were not in keeping with the image of a delinquent. I wondered if he had really been in juvie, or if that was just more false gossip. I had learned firsthand how untrue rumors could be. He pulled into the parking lot of Home Depot and parked the car. Thanks for letting me drive. When I get like that, it helps to focus on doing something. I gathered that he was talking about some kind of anger management technique, but his gaze was fierce when he turned to look at me. I'll help you for as long as it takes, Sarah. Your stepsister is a total bitch, and I won't let her mess with you anymore. Bring me the money so that I can get my car fixed, and I promise that you can count on me for whatever you need. It was crazy to trust him, since I hardly even knew him, but he seemed so genuinely passionate about what he was saying that I found myself agreeing to bring him the remainder of the money of the following day. His smile was fleeting, like he wasn't used to smiling, but the glimpse of it started a fluttering in my stomach. I wanted to have that smile directed at me again, and I was filled with an anticipation of seeing him again tomorrow.